Today we are recording from the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Our work is focused on strengthening the voice of the user interest, the end market stakeholder, or as we like to say, the user owner final fiduciary. This is the stakeholder who pays the bill for both safety and sustainability in technical and business standards. In the United States, Standards Development System identified in ANSI's essential requirements for due process and is described in many places on our website. There are three broad categories: producer, general interest, and user. An economist might identify the stakeholders' technical and business standards as buyer, seller, and market maker. Our Twitter icon was created to convey the balanced market the ANSI process contemplates. The first two eyes of our Twitter icon represent the producer and general interest. The darkened eye represents the user. In almost all markets governed by technical and business standards in which the public sector is the end market customer, the user owner final fiduciary, does not have the ability to build the cost of standards advocacy into the price of their deliverable, which is safety and sustainability to the public sector, into the cost of their product or service. That is why part of the economic problem we face to advance our total cost of ownership agenda means that we will have to collaborate with our market competitors, typically manufacturers, insurance, labor, and enforcement. For more on that part of our discussion today, I will be turning it over to Mike Anthony. But first, I'd like to welcome our calling guests. First of all, we have Dennis Johnson with the University of Michigan, and also Mike Toner, a University of Michigan alumni, and our man in Hollywood. Now I will turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Christine. I'm focusing on the word zeitgeist here. It's not one that's commonly used, and it's not intended to belittle forward-thinking technology enthusiasts, but it is a trend that we've seen with a fair amount of consistently, at least over my career, where the atmosphere of enthusiasm, let's put it that way, and of course, sometimes that enthusiasm comes at a cost. I've seen this several times in the energy conservation era. We're seeing it again. And we don't have a lot of time to speak about the specifics. They will reveal themselves as we go along. But in general, I wanted to use this term because we're in the middle of what I think is not in the middle. Nobody really knows what the middle is. But the enthusiasm for smart grid, Internet of Everything, and getting all our devices to talk to one another. We've seen this before. As I mentioned up here, farther up here in our blog page for this particular teleconference, I'd mentioned that we've already been down this road with automating our buildings, and now we want to expand smart grid onto entire cities. And of course, there's a great deal of ferocious competition among the trade associations, manufacturers, other interest groups that want to benefit by setting a standard for those interoperability firmware platforms. So I felt that knowing how the size of the undertaking is and why it's not wise to even attempt to try to do any of this alone, and why collaboration is necessary to get a big job done like this, that this might be an appropriate topic for our teleconference today. So what I'm going to do is let's start by listening to Mr. Gross from Eaton. I'm going to take some of our inspiration from his discussion here.
Eaton is participating in this campaign because, well, certainly we believe standards are critical for our industry. And actually, we think they're more critical than ever. They've been instrumental in getting us clean, safe, reliable power. But on an international basis, as things like smart grid evolve, standards are going to play just a huge role, bigger than ever, in achieving those kinds of lofty goals. Eaton's electrical business it prides itself on innovation, and we believe we're one of the top innovators. But on the other hand, we don't supply every product that a final customer requires for their total solution. So Standards is just a terrific way for innovative companies like Eaton and others to come together and provide a total solution for our customers and allow them to achieve their objective, whether it's a more modernized factory or a more reliable power system. So we really believe in Standards as a way our industry can collectively enhance the value of the electrical industry. Standards allow us to take innovation and present it to the market in a way that's usable to them. So as an example, when we developed arc fault breakers, which really protect a home from fire and protect the inhabitants of the home, we were able to achieve that innovation and still give that standard technology to the industry so that others could build supporting products and in some cases competing products. But as a result of that and that innovation, the electrical industry got larger and more successful.
Okay, so let's stop right there and let's go back a little bit. I wanted others to know, especially my colleagues at Eaton, that we do understand the need for manufacturers to recoup their investment in research and development. I wanted to show some of our colleagues here what a report from, looks like one of the relatives of Sandy Cutler, I'm not sure if this might be his son, but this is what the investing public sees when typically this is rolled out to analysts, people who are advising maybe your local broker, for example, as to what type of investment you might want to make. And certainly Eaton is one of the first names in infrastructure standards. But it's important to understand that in order for them to be able to grow their business, they have to collaborate. And he mentioned that. Now, I wanted to give you a sense of the numbers here. So in general, it looks like you see here, Eaton has invested 5.5 in research and development. And so now they've done a lot since 2000. More recently, they purchased Cooper Busman. Probably for in fact, I believe that was one of the reasons, apart from the Irish tax haven, was the acquisition of Cooper Busman. He'll allude to it later on in his talk here, that they're not able to do anything. So what they did is they acquired Cooper Busman that had a strong lighting division, and so they bought that part of it. And that's an example where, well, look, if we can't, if you have a choice to either collaborate with them or actually just to buy the whole division, and that's what they did. And I think they roughly doubled their annual sales. They've taken some time to integrate it. You know, when you're digesting another company of that size, I think Cooper Busman was about 10-15 billion. And I think before the acquisition, Eaton was about 25 billion. So they're roughly maybe 35 billion right now, and they now have a lighting division. So I mean to say here that we're sensitive to the fact that companies like Eaton and others and their competitors have to be in business. We think of ourselves as an industry that needs to, certainly we're teaching young people to contribute to the economy. And we don't need to be putting anybody out of business. They can do that themselves if they don't deliver. So I wanted to give a sense of scale, and if you're interested in this, I'll actually post. In fact, I think it's actually on I think if you go back to the web page, I believe I put this up here to let others know about the Eaton innovation story. That's all I'm trying to drive it here. You can see it's fairly extensive. You have to understand that a lot of these reports are governed by some fairly rigorous rules by the SEC. They have to do things just right to represent their investment prospect fairly to the public. So in general, what you're going to find is that most of the global diversified manufacturers in a space like infrastructure are putting in about 2 to 4% of their annual sales into research and development. And they need to have that. Now, we can challenge them on some of the specifics, and you'll see me doing this. But they do need to stay in business. And these are the different divisions here, by the way. So you can see that they're investing a fair amount of money in this here. I'm not sure what these other divisions are all about. Looks like electrical is in the middle of the pack. And you can see their growth rate. So this is what you do when when you're running public money. Of course, we're running public money, probably 10 times the size of Eaton, but only about 60 billion of our 300 billion is involved in electrotechnology. So again, I like to show others these numbers. I like others to know our sensitivities to private industry. And with that said, now we're going to approach them on a few of the more sensitive issues. Since you brought up arc fault circuit interrupters, I thought that I'd let you have a look at. Now, what I'm going to do here, those of you who are familiar with Prezi, I have a choice of locking these images in on particular frames, but I'm not going to do this. I'll make some people a little bit dizzy, but I wanted you to see, let's look at the Eaton product. So this arc fault circuit interrupters is a product that opens a circuit before enough heat buildup. It uses a signature on a fault. It turns out in an RLC circuit that's failing in a certain way, there's a signature. It's fairly common. In fact, the arc fault circuit interrupter was actually a scaled down version of an open circuit symmetrical component model that picked up when energy is going through at 60 hertz to 3 different phases. You can usually model that in a way, but there's a fairly immutable Mother Nature type of walls you hit, and so it's easy to actually to make an arc fault. The principle is very easy. It's been out there since Wagner and Evans, for my electrical engineers around there, since Nikola Tesla actually, when they started, and Mr. Steinmetz. So that's the history of it. So he alludes to the fact that they're innovating on their product. So here's what an Eaton arc fault circuit interrupter looks like. You can see a little tail there. This will open up before things get too hot. Your kid has a bedroom, and they've got a lot of extension cords underneath the bed. There's a lot of dust bunnies under the bed. In fact, I was this early supporter of advancing, making these an option for student residence facilities. Dormitory rooms can get pretty, cluttered. They can get very cluttered. They can get to the point of being what we would call a Class 2 Division 2 hazard. That would be up there along with the flour mills. Some of them can be just as hazardous as a flour mill. So this device will actually take the circuit out well before you get any igniting heat. Here's Schneider's version of it also. These used to run about $30 each, and now they're down to about $6 each. So when others complained back about 10 years ago when I said I think these are a good idea for dormitories, they were about $30 each. When you buy them all in a package in a single panel board, they are now something on the order of $6. So they've gone down quite a bit in price for wider application. We've seen this before with ground fault circuit interrupters, so this is a little bit different. There's a lot of Sturm und Drang among the home builders lobby. They don't want to spend any more money on this. This is a case where good people disagree. I think that they've gone down in price because we began to operate them and install them at a greater scale. So again, they all used a technology that had been around. They're all competing on their particular method of manufacture. So if you look at these, they're all what we call enclosed, molded case, single pole circuit breakers. What you don't see is how they mount in the back here. Okay, so that's should that be proprietary? That's been a question I've asked over a number of years. So how they actually get seated in the panel board seems to be where the manufacturers want to distinguish themselves. And so I asked the question, it's been going on for about 10, 15 years now, why aren't all arc fault circuit breakers interchangeable? Actually, why aren't all circuit breakers, 20 amp pole breakers, why aren't they all interchangeable? When you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, for example, you will see that you will see these manufacturers, you'll see possibly all four manufacturers with their own part of the shelf, unless Home Depot or Lowe's have cut a deal with the shelf stockers. But here's why they're not interchangeable. They're not interchangeable because of the way they're seated in the panel board. Now, so this would be a household panel. It's probably about 200 amps. You can see two hot phases and a neutral. And if you get in very close, who's this? Looks like this is a square D, and you're seeing a two-pole breaker here. This assembly right here, how it actually locks onto the hot bus, so to say, that seems to want to be the proprietary element that the manufacturers want to hold on to. Here's what looks probably as small as either a 60 or 100 amp. Again, two phases, a neutral. I'm not sure whose circuit breaker this one is, but my point is that the manufacturers have decided that they're not, while they may develop their own circuit breaker over here, they want to distinguish themselves by the way their breakers are seated in the panel board. And there actually is a governing standard for that one, and that seems to be where the battleground is. I've asked the question, well, why can't I put a Siemens breaker in a square D panel, or why can't I put a General Electric in there? They're saying, well, it's because of a particular standard that UL is enforcing that they've developed, and you can see, I have this up. This is available for anyone if you're interested in. Of course, they refer back to the NEC. So long story short, my point here is that to some degree, the manufacturers have collaborated in the development, taking this technology from the utility industry and placing it into the home for fire safety. But they decided that they're going to compete on these particular, what we call the guts or the housing of it, and that's where they parted ways. There's an analog that happened back some years ago. I talked to Jack Shelton at the IEC a few years ago. He had said he ran into the same thing when he was trying to get Sony and the Philips to deal to find a few specifications they could agree upon in the CD format, compact disc. Up to that point, they've been competing destructively, and so he managed to get them to agree and thereby grew the market. So I want to belabor that point, but that's an example where the manufacturers have agreed, collaborated on some basic specifications. They're all building around it, and they may be competing on their ability. Maybe supply chain, maybe one of these is better at moving product through the pipeline. Maybe another one has a better sales force. Maybe another one has better international presence. These two may well be able to do that. But in any case, that's the story about this fine line between collaboration and competition. So let's carry on. Let's let Mr. Gross continue his story here.
Standards will really, I think, boost our industry if we can achieve interoperability and ease of integration of our products. And I think this will make markets because on top of the products, there's just a wonderful array of opportunities for software-based solutions and the integration aspects. And again, I think that's going to take a lot of standalone devices and just unlock huge opportunities for all of us to add value on top of the products. And standards will play a key role in achieving that. We have to be willing to follow standards, and we certainly do in all of our products. We follow international standards. But in addition to that, as a manufacturer of electrical products, we have to be willing to influence standards because the standards have to be good and they have to be right for our industry. And so we participate on many standards boards, not just to find out what's occurring, but really to influence what's occurring. So I see the next level of standardization around the softer parts of the electrical business and around information and the ultimate integration of these things to create those tremendous opportunities.
Thank you, Tom. I hope you see this video and you're happy with our treatment of your company here. So let's draw ourselves to a close here. I wanted to make some final points here, and I guess the main thing is that we're coming upon this era in which he's indicating the direction, which is fairly clear now, that we want our devices, our source and loads to match up. We want to what we would call plug and play. If we're going to have our transformers communicate with our circuit breakers and our circuit breakers communicate with the loads, then we would like to see some plug-and-play interoperability, and there's a very large battleground. You know, you're seeing some of this going on with Uber, for example. We always thought that the solution to an urban traffic problem was just more roads and more cabs, when in fact, when you look at the data, there's only 0.4 people in a cab at any given time. So what Uber has done is they've been able to narrow the gap between supply and demand with information technology, and that's kind of what smart grid is all about. That's a different teleconference. My point is to say that a lot of the forward movement in the electrical industry and others will be in how we get our equipment to communicate, how our supply, closing that gap and filling that with information so that we're not wasting or not missing opportunities. So I like to use I don't like bullet points. I prefer to have people here. So I had Mr. Nikola Tesla tell us what Mr. Gross has told us, that the next leg of power system development will involve the application of information and communications technology more than hardware. We've got transformers down. We've got circuit breakers down. But getting demand and supply matched up, quote, narrowing or shortening or making the magnitude of the mismatch vector smaller, that's what we're after, and we think that would probably replace a lot of a new generation. So and again, our friend from who's a Progressive, our Progressive insurance lady, says many technical conceptions are very large, and that no single enterprise can make them a reality. Now, what you're going to see later on tonight, I think I have a scheduled blog post, which I meant to follow this. I think I've got it up there, or at least it's in draft form. It's from a company called 1N2M. I'll show you in a moment. And they seem to be the leader of the pack right now as far as a trade association trying to own the Internet of Everything space. So we'll get back to that before we close. Let's see, our Gecko here says the assembly of stakeholders in the business and technical standards development communities only need to agree upon a few of the basic standards principles to grow markets. So you just saw that with the arc fault circuit interrupter, and I think it should be fairly clear. We like to think, think in a more immediate way. At some point many years ago, somebody decided, let's everybody drive on the right side of the road. So when everybody's driving on the right side of the road, that might have had some implications for what side of the car the steering wheel is on. And it goes on and on and on like that. So that's how you grow a market, by agreeing on just a few things, and thereby you grow the market. Let's see, our friend Captain Obvious, the boundary between collaboration and competition is subtle. That's right. You know, we have some of this going on in some of the national labs. I know Brookhaven. I think there's one over, what's the one in Illinois? There's also Lawrence Livermore. There's CERN in Europe. You'll see pools of physicists over there using a large piece of hardware, and they're all testing their own. They're testing their own theories using the shared piece of equipment. I guess that happens also in astronomy. We have telescopes in Chile, for example, and they're all looking for different things. So they have to collaborate because none of them singly can afford the hardware to conduct their investigations. But of course, they're all on ResearchGate and all the other academic paper journal websites to get their findings keyed in before the next researcher. So there needs to be a healthy competition there. Now this is a little more sensitive when I say the boundary between collaboration and collusion is subtle. It's not intended to implicate anybody, but there are laws against market distortion, shall we say, by companies deliberately doing that. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but there's a little bit of poetic parallel here. Collaboration and competition is subtle, but sometimes when collaboration is taken to an extreme, or at least into an untoward direction, it becomes like collusion, and that's not allowed in our system. It's an intention to create a monopoly. Of course, if you're on the other side of the story, they may say that all monopolies are evil except the one that you own. So you have to be careful about this, and I don't mean to imply Eaton or Schneider or Siemens or anything. I'm sure there's examples that other people are studying, but I just wanted to say that we're sensitive to that also. We want to make sure that the market's fair. Finally, our industry does have the economic footprint to influence the direction of technical and business standards with collaboration between the business and the academic sides of our industry. So we run into this a lot, and I'll take smart grid. I'm working with a colleague from Ohio State University who has an academic interest in this. Mahesh Shindala, you can see on our website, and the IEEE Education and Healthcare website, you can see that. I'm working with him. He's taken the academic view where he's testing out this narrowing of the supply-demand the supply-demand signals, and I'm looking at it from a business standpoint, which is I think we're doing most of smart grid, or at least microgrid, already, and so that's a larger discussion. But that's a case where the business side, we're a large customer. We're there to support the academic side of the industry. Sometimes the academic sides of the industry get sort of steered away from practical solutions because most research universities are in the business of creating new knowledge, and in the process of creating new knowledge, you're entitled to fall off the rail from time to time, as long as you get yourself back on it. So it's important that I try to show it with a yin-yang relationship. Arguably, this should be asymmetric because the business side is only about 20% of the industry, so the academic and the teaching, the research is a larger part, but as close as I could get.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. We wanted everyone to know that we are transitioning to a new YouTube channel. Our first channel registered over 2,000 views over the past 14 months, and now it's time for us to archive the better productions and the most views. So you will see the shortening of the original channel and the expansion of our new channel. We will likely leave the videos that are most popular and remove the videos that receive the fewest views.
Right, I'm showing that right here, Christine. This is the one with me. We will be transitioning over to one that has the Standards Michigan. So we'll do that over the next 6 months. We'll probably root out the ones that aren't there. We actually had a rather good one. I'm going to encourage people to see this one here. We just uploaded that yesterday. We got 13 views on that one. I'm rather fond of this one, not because I like Andy and his work, but it does show that even though we don't have people calling in interactively on a Friday afternoon, we know that Friday afternoon is special, especially in the summer. That's actually why we do these, because we don't want to take premium time from others' calendars. Okay.
And in addition, we want people to know that you're welcome to comment on the playlist and or comment on our blog posts. You can find those at our Standards Michigan website. Next week, we will begin rolling out the details of Joe Batia's, the CEO of ANSI, visit to the University of Michigan on September 25th. Joe's presentation will be open to the entire education facilities industry and other interested parties. We do not have the call-in numbers yet, but they will be posted on our website. We're very excited for Joe's visit to the University of Michigan.
Is that it?
I believe that is it. We have details on our website, as you can see in this recording. And in addition, I would like to thank our guests, Dennis Johnson and Mike Toner. So thank you very much for watching our video, and enjoy your weekend.